The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 113.
One day, I shall come back.
That's it. I've been renewed.
Is when a Time Lord's body wears out, he regenerates.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity.
Bravehearty.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding.
Physician universe. Wearing a bit thin.
Fantastic.
I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who, both new and classic. Today we're discussing the 10th Doctor story. It's a two-part story, Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks. And joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going, Dom?
So, folks, remember to like the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, retweet us on Twitter at SQPN, leave us comments. We have lots of great comments that we have a great community on our Facebook page, on our website at sqpn.com, and on Twitter, where people are engaging in discussions and sending us their comments and feedback. It's awesome. If you're not subscribed to the podcast yet, if you're just trying it out, be sure to subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or on YouTube, where you can hit the bell to make sure you get notifications when a new episode goes up. And above all, please share the podcast with your friends to help us grow this great community of Doctor Who fans and reach more listeners. So before we get started, I want to just mention to folks that if you're not yet listening to Jimmy Aiken's Mysterious World, this is a must for all of our Secrets of Doctor Who listeners. I mean, this is these shows go hand in hand. Mysterious World is a show about the real world where mysteries are present, and Jimmy and I, and mostly Jimmy because he's the expert, explore some of these great mysteries of the past, the present, mysteries of scripture, the future, all kinds of great stuff. Just go to sqpn.com/mysterious. Check out some of our previous episodes, and you'll see the vast variety of shows that we're doing, and we get some great ones coming up as well. So please go check that out if you have not yet listened.
Well, thank you, Dom. I hadn't known you were going to say that. I hadn't thought about it this way, but we kind of do go everywhere in space and time on Mysterious World.
That's right. That's right. So today, as I mentioned at the top, we're talking about this two-part episode from the fourth season of the renewed Doctor Who. It aired third season. I knew I was going to get that wrong because I didn't write it down. And if I don't write it down, I won't get it right.
Fourth season is Donna. 2 seasons of Rose, a season of Martha, which is what we're doing now, and then a season of Donna.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Daleks in Manhattan is the 4th episode of the 3rd season. I misread my notes. So
good save.
Good. Thank you. I knew I was right somehow, and that has to be clear. So it aired initially the first episode April of 2007. So it kind of situates it in time for you. And this is like you said, Martha Jones and David Tennant as the Doctor, the 10th Doctor. And so the basic premise is they're continuing their journey through time on their way back to Martha's time, which is coming up next. The next episode after this, they get back to 21st century London, but now they've arrived in New York City in the 1930s during the building of the Empire State Building, where they conveniently encounter the cult of Skaro, who are trying to destroy humanity and reign supreme and blah blah blah, the usual Dalek nonsense. So
and we've met the cult of Skaro a couple times before.
Yeah, could you? So let's talk about that first. So where have we seen the cult of Skaro? Their beginning is in Classic Who?
No. Their beginning is in New Who. They're a creation of the Time War. Apparently, the Emperor Dalek commissioned these 4 individual Daleks who have names to be a kind of Dalek think tank that would envision other desperate ways of surviving the Time War. So they developed an ability to emergency time shift out of the Time War, which is why they're not time locked. And they were at the Battle of Canary Wharf. That's the time we saw them most recently, and they time shifted to get out of that. And so now we're meeting them again.
That's when, so they time shifted to New York City in the 30s.
Yeah, after burrowing through the time lock, sort of.
Right.
With that big, giant Goa old telecommunications ball.
Exactly.
Hey, nice Stargate reference there. That'll be on Secrets of Stargate eventually. So when we, one of the things that's interesting about these 2 episodes is that even though they're Dalek episodes, at no time do the Daleks ever utter the line "exterminate"
in the first episode.
In the first episode. Yes, in the second episode they did.
It's all over the second episode.
Yeah,
that's true.
Right, and especially right before they kill Solomon.
Right. Oh, right. It was. I had that note, and then I didn't double check when I was watching the second episode. So we begin with this backstage of this theater, not Broadway. It's off Broadway, sort of what's that style called? Burlesque sort of theater in the 30s, and we have a dancing girl and the stage manager, and they have the
stage
worst
hand.
Stage hand. Oh, right, yeah, the stage. Yeah, he's a hand. Anyway, they have the worst New York accents, stereotypes. I mean, they are
with 3 L's and an H.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to trust you on that. These are bad New York accent stuff. Once you get above the Mason-Dixon line, it starts to get fuzzy for me. So I'll take your word.
They're way over the top, like that. They're trying way too hard to do a New York accent, and it is heavy duty.
It does taper down as the episode goes on, especially into the second episode. But boy, at this beginning, she was hard to listen to.
Right. Well, the actress who plays Tallulah is in fact British, so she's doing an American accent. So that's part of it.
Attempting an American accent might be a better way to put that.
Right. Oh my! It was like in one sense, it's like something out of the 30s, like a movie from the 30s where you saw that sort of thing.
To be fair, the
when this is set,
the guy who played Laszlo, her boyfriend / stagehand, he is American. I believe he was from Chicago area.
Right.
Originally.
His was not nearly as bad, but it was up there. So we have this. The girl goes on, Tallulah goes on to stage. Laszlo stays behind, and then he hears a noise, the classic "Don't go back there" noise, and gets attacked by a pig man, a man with the head of a pig, and then we cut from that, and then we are now at Bedloe's Island, which is the actual island that the Statue of Liberty on. Most people think it's Ellis Island, but Ellis Island is not the statue. We actually now call it Liberty Island, I think is the name today. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it was called Bedloe's Island, and they were at the foot
rebranding.
Yeah, much better. And they arrive there, and the doctor is kind of this funny moment where the doctor is trying to figure out what year it is based on what he sees around him. And Martha says, "Oh, it's November 1st, 1930," and shows him the newspaper with the date on it.
Every once in a while, they like to turn that around where the doctor's still trying to figure it out, and the companion sees a clue or something to give him a hint. Yeah. Oh, it must be about. Well, how did you know that? It's right here.
It's on a plaque or on a. Yeah, exactly. So the Empire State Building is under construction, and this is historical. The Empire State Building started construction in March 1930 and finished in April 1931. So this
is really fast.
Yes, which for what was the tallest building in the world at the time. So then we get a little back and forth about that, and then we cut to Central Park, where they show up at the to back up, the headline on the paper is that people are disappearing from Hooverville in Central Park, and Hoovervilles are also a historical reality.
Yep. They're basically homeless settlements. People lost everything in the Great Depression, and they ended up in these basically shanty towns wherever they could find places to put them, especially in the big cities.
Named ironically after President Herbert Hoover, sort of,
who was blamed for the Great Depression.
Right. The one in New York City, there was one in New York City in Central Park. It was on what is now called the Great Lawn, but it was at the time an empty reservoir. So it might not have actually looked as tree-filled and pastoral as it did in the show in reality, but it's still placed, there. And it was one of the larger ones. There was also ones, I think, in in Washington, D.C. was a quite large one, and some others. And we get an extended exposition about Hoovervilles between the Doctor and Martha. What did you think about like the amount of time they spent on kind of bringing that up?
I didn't strike me particularly. I guess, in a way, it's kind of revisiting their educational remit from the early days of the show.
That's what I kind of thought.
And for us in the States, hopefully the Great Depression is still a part of our lived history, and we still understand what the Great Depression was. And I don't know how much that's known outside of our country, though. Yeah. So someplace like Great Britain, the Great Depression, at least as we lived it, I don't know what Britain went through. See, I mean, that's like, they don't know kind of what the Great Depression what was like for our country. We don't know what they lived through at the same time.
Yeah, actually, Father Corey, you're right. I remember thinking at the time, they're backfilling the story for the British audience because they won't know as much about the Depression.
Right. So they get to this Hooverville and immediately encounter a black man and a white man fighting over a loaf of bread. And this second black man steps up, and his name is Solomon. And he stops the fighting and
split that bread in half.
I mean, very clearly, this is a reference to King Solomon from the Bible, who, he threatened to cut a baby in half for two women disputing that it was their child, knowing that one of them would say, no, let him live, and that would be the right mother.
In this case, neither says let him have all of the bread, though.
No.
Exactly. and it's not as big a concern if you split a loaf of bread in half. You just don't get as much bread.
Right, exactly. So it was interesting. They talk about how the Hoovervilles, where it does in the Hoovervilles, it doesn't matter if you're white or black or if you were, once a lawyer or you were a dish digger. That actually was also true. Hoovervilles were racially integrated. Poverty really broke down all those stupid barriers that people had put up between the races.
It up to a degree, yes. Although actually, even though I've criticized the show in recent times as being a little too PC here, or painting with an overly negative brush on this subject here, I think that actually for 1930s, this is not as racist as it would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do kind of skim over that pretty quickly and move on with it. Yeah, that's true.
But it's a fantasy show.
Yeah. Yes. Now, did you recognize the actor who played Solomon in this? Do you recognize where he's from? He looked very familiar.
I had to look him up because he did look familiar.
Yeah. So he was Captain Panaka in Star Wars Phantom Menace. He was the head of Queen Amidala's honor guard. So that was...
He was so much better in this role.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you actually admit that show even exists, but no.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit that even my kids actually like it, but they're young.
Well, and there's another actor coming up here in this scene that is also he's even more well known.
Oh yeah. In fact, the young man who's Frank is played by Andrew Garfield, who becomes plays Spider-Man at one point, but even has gone beyond that now with wonderful movies, Hacksaw Ridge and Silence. And I found it very interesting that the character he plays in this is young man from Tennessee is very similar in many ways, at least in accent and demeanor, to the character he played in Hacksaw Ridge, who was a real person. in that. So
difference was Frank was willing to pick up a gun, unlike Desmond Doss.
yes. Andrew Garfield was born in Los Angeles but raised in England, so he does have a British accent, but he is an American by birth in that sense. So and you know he is his promise shows here. He does play the role well.
This was before he became well known as Spider-Man and everything else he's done since.
Yes,
so.
Very early he was an unknown at this point. Someone asked the question, how can you build the tallest building in the world right next door to where people are starving? And it's like, simple questions don't always have simple answers.
Well, and that I thought betrayed. It's kind of like that episode of Deep Space Nine where the writers are trying to say something insightful about capitalism with Quark, and it's clear the writers do not understand capitalism.
Right.
And here we have something similar where they're pointing to the Empire State Building and saying ironically, oh, how can they do that when they've got people starving in the heart of Manhattan? And actually, okay, guys, that's generating jobs and food for the starving people in Manhattan.
Right.
Because you want projects to give people work and food and dignity when you have a tough economic situation.
Well, the irony of that, of course, is a few years after this is set is when you have Roosevelt, FDR's New Deal and everything, where they're making all these kind of buildings. And we've got a large dam, Fort Peck Dam, 100 miles from here, that was made while people were starving, et cetera, because it got them jobs and food and money and, all that kind of stuff. Even
in this episode, even though it's the Daleks who are hiring the people, but the people in Hooverville are being hired to do work on this building, so it's kind of funny. So we have, so that's,
by the way, I like Martha's comment, just to back up for a second. I like Martha's comment at the beginning of the show that it's nice to be in the real New York, not the new one.
That's right. Yes. The genuine article, as the doctor says. So the foundational premise for this episode is that the Daleks, the cult of Skaro, are here. They've been weakened, and they're trying to renew themselves and regenerate essentially the Dalek race.
So they're having the Empire State Building built in a special way with creepy technology so they can attract the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Pretty much,
yeah. Where Zool is coming to save the cult of Skaro. So they're putting these pieces of Dalek technology of the casing. One of the Daleks sacrifices his casing on the mast so that when there's a lightning strike, it creates what they call a gamma strike,
a gamma ray strike that looks exactly like a lightning strike for some reason.
Yes.
Caused by a solar flare, which solar flares don't cause lightning strikes.
And that's hitting the other side of the Earth because this is night.
Exactly. Well, you can only have lightning at night in movies and TV shows. I mean, that's just a fact.
Of course.
I guess so.
So they're going to have this, use this radiation to power their final solution or final
experiment.
Yes, I did that intentionally. It does smack a little bit of the Nazis' language here, with the way they use it. It seems to be a conscious callback to the Nazi final solution. So then they are using the Daleks are using this human factotum to run things. This Diagoras, his name is,
which is a real Greek name, believe it or not.
Yes, mm-hmm. I kind of figured. I looked it up, and the actor is actually a guy from Boston, so he comes by his accent honestly, but it is a very strong Boston accent masquerading as New York accent. But
definitely got to take your word on that one.
Yes.
Boston, New York, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Oh,
wow, that was my thought.
Oh, that's right. That's it. This podcast is over. No, just kidding.
I had to throw it in.
So there's this interesting scene between the Dalek. I think it's Dalek Sec and Diagoras, where they're on the top of the Empire State Building, and they kind of have this discussion where the Dalek is impressed by the human ability, despite being weak and scared of the dark. He knows that the Dalek world is falling, yet New York City always continues throughout time, because he knows that New York and all, etc., will be there in a billion years. And then even compliments Diagoras, says, "You think like a Dalek," because Diagoras says he's going to survive no matter what. And so you see the foundation being laid for what eventually is going to happen to poor Diagoras here. I feel bad for him, even though he is a bad guy, because that shouldn't happen to anybody. What eventually happens, and
it's kind of an oversimplification, but you could say that the fact that humanity is weaker than a lot of animals on our planet and is afraid of the dark, if you will, is what led us to develop things like civilization and
electric
cities and electric lights and all the stuff that we have. Now, that's a great, gross oversimplification. I mean, there's so much more to that than just we were afraid of the dark and we didn't want to get eaten by a lion, a tiger, or a bear. Oh my. Well,
in a way, you could say, I mean, it's often said that our intelligence was our greatest weapon, that we didn't have claws, we didn't have overwhelming power, but what we had was our brain that we could use to invent the things that compensated. So there's some truth in that. So the Daleks are basically, they've created these pig slaves out of human beings that we cast off that aren't intelligent enough for what their final experiment is, which is to they're trying to create a Dalek human hybrid. Daleks that use the best of what human beings have to offer to create a stronger creature, which for most of the Daleks in the Cult of Skaro apparently mean they think they're going to be mostly Dalek. They're going to be just basically Dalek.
Dominantly Dalek.
Yes.
Daleks on a human body is basically all they're thinking. Whereas
Dalek Sec thinks a little differently.
Well, Ian, especially after he gets human infused. It's interesting the way they redress stuff in this episode from Classic Who, because in Classic Who we didn't have pig slaves. Instead, they would just take humans and put little electronic devices on their heads and turn them into Dalek men that were basically the same thing. They were just thug robot people.
And you see a little bit of that in New Who, where they have the humans where the eye stalk would come out of their forehead.
Right?
Eventually, but not at this stage. And they're kind of reintroducing the Daleks, and so they've redressed that. And then, actually, the premise of this episode is redressed because they've done this before. In the second Doctor's time, there was a serial called Evil of the Daleks, and in that one, it had a black Dalek as the leader, which I think must be a deliberate nod to that episode, because in this, Dalek Sec has a black casing.
Yes.
And they were trying to extract something they called the human factor to improve themselves, and it and they used the Dalek the Doctor to extract the human factor and then apply it to them, and they ended up creating several humanized Daleks. Now, at that time, they didn't get a new body and a snappy pinstripe zoot suit. Instead, they were still just Daleks in their casing, and so the humanized Daleks, the Doctor put a mark on their casing so he could tell them apart. But they became he initially humanized 3 Daleks, Alpha, Beta, and Omega, Omega, and and it just as it led to a civil war. So among the Daleks, they became too human. So we've actually seen this plot before, and incidentally, it's the one that introduced the Doctor's companion, Victoria.
Interesting. Which Doctor was that again?
Second Dr. Patrick Troughton.
Oh, okay.
And there's a photo novel of this if you want to read it.
Interesting. And that's the interesting thing that comes up is that the other Daleks object to Dalek Sec's plan to create a human Dalek hybrid because it introduces impurities, because the Daleks are xenophobes. Only Dalek is worth survival, etc., etc.
They are the master race. They are the best of the best of the best. No one else, et cetera, et cetera.
Future space Nazis, and but Dalek Sec comes back with the objection to them if Daleks are supreme, right, it didn't work. If Daleks are supreme, why are there so few of us? And that's an interesting counterpoint. He's actually a Dalek who thinks beyond the programming, beyond the sloganeering,
which is the leader of the cult of Skaro, fulfills his remit. Right,
and also shows the danger from the Dalek point of view of having independent thinkers, so to speak. So the Doctor and Martha eventually they go into the sewer system. They find evidence of the Dalek experiments in a pound of flesh, literally.
Green glowing jellyfish flesh.
I like what Martha says. Of course he's going to pick it up. Yep, he picked it up. He touched it.
Let's just hang a lantern on that.
And then
at least he didn't lick it.
Yes. Even knowing it was a rubberized whatever, that would still make me a little queasy. They encounter the slave men, the pig slaves. Frank gets captured. And then they run into Tallulah. And that's where they start to find out about Laszlo, and they'll eventually encounter Laszlo in the sewers again, but he's only been partially converted, and I don't know if
he escaped.
Yeah, okay, so I must have gone quickly, or I missed the line, because it seemed like, why did Laszlo of all of them get away before the full conversion?
He didn't explain. They didn't explain how he got away, but he said he escaped before they wiped his mind.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then I also found it hard to believe that his voice was exactly the same, so I'm not sure why it was so difficult for Tallulah to recognize his voice, with that encounter. It was very strange. So and Tallulah misunderstands Martha's disappointment that the Doctor doesn't notice her in a romantic fashion as the Doctor being into musical theater.
Yeah,
which is an interesting euphemism and a bit an old stereotype that probably would never fly today.
Nope.
Also, why is there a manhole cover to the sewers in the theater?
Yeah, I wondered about that too.
Because plot device.
because plot device. About that pound of flesh, I did find it slightly reminiscent of the genesis of the Daleks. That there was there were
quite a few callbacks to Genesis of the Daleks in this.
Yeah.
Talking about their creator created them to be the ultimate race. Of course, talking about
Davros.
Davros, thank you. Hate when I blank like that. But there were quite a few callbacks to that episode.
Mm-hmm.
I always get them mixed up with the city with Switzerland, but Davos.
Yeah. Which they say has similar aims. So
exactly.
At least the group that meets there.
It's a little on the nose, folks.
Yeah. They eventually explained the gloppy thing that the Doctor finds in the sewer as a cast-off experiment. It's a Dalek embryo, apparently, from when they had tried regenerating themselves before they came up with the human thing.
Yes.
And it didn't work, and that's why they're turning to the human thing.
Right. So
also at about this point in the plot, Solomon goes back up after escaping from the sewer. He goes back to Hooverville and has this one of several great speeches he gets. Great meaning large and prominent,
right.
Not necessarily best literary quality. But I did like this one where he is organizing the people in Hooverville to defend themselves against the Daleks. And he's expressly saying, arm yourselves. We're going to set up sentries and everything. He's telling them to pick up weapons and defend themselves. And it's like, yes, sanity on Doctor Who in the face of a threat.
Exactly.
Now, he then goes totally new Who with the why can't we all just be friends, which leads to its obvious result.
Yes.
In the second episode.
You cannot be friends with
to hear that. I can't have to expect to hear that song in the background. Why can't we be friends?
No, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah. So Solomon kind of has a sudden personality change here between the two phases of the show, but it was nice to see the sensible phase while it lasted.
Right. It's
although it was interesting, for the speech of I don't like violence and I don't like weapons, but go arm yourself, and then they throw open a tent and there's a fully stocked armory waiting for them. But
yeah, that
works.
That was actually the next one. But yeah, I thought that was a little interesting too, that they had all these weapons. I mean, he's a veteran. He says it early on in the first episode that he's a veteran of the First World War, and he knows wherever he speaks. on the topic of war and battle. So there's that. So it's
and weapons in the past have been much more assumed than they are today. I mean, back in the day, in the Old West, even if you were like a criminal and had been in jail, when you got out of jail, they gave you back your gun because you would need it to survive.
Yes.
I even remember reading an account of Beatrix Potter, the author of all the little children's books, Peter Rabbit and everything.
Yep.
And she apparently was at a social gathering of like 13 people, and it turned out 12 of them were armed.
Yeah.
And there were guns, and even in the rabbit books. One of our favorite ones with my kids is the one where the bad rabbit ends up shooting his own tail off with mishandling a gun.
Poor gun safety.
Yes, exactly.
I was starting to kind of get skittishy with Tallulah's really appalling gun safety practices until she explains it's just a prop. It's like, okay, then you can fool around with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But every gun you should treat it as loaded, even if it's a play gun. That's the rule. So another interesting moment was actually with the foreman of the construction project with Daggeris. At one point, he says, "These new bosses, what's their names?" And Daggeris says, "You could say they're from out of town. Italian."
Yeah,
a bit further than that. I enjoyed that bit. That was good. So as the first episode comes to an end, it's the Daleks Dalek Sec has taken Daggeris, who has proven himself to be intelligent and like a Dalek, and he kind of absorbs him. It was kind of very disturbing, where it just the Dalek casing opens, he reaches out with tentacles. He basically kind of swallows him and sucks him back into the casing, where it is very reminiscent of a cocoon, like a chrysalis.
Yep.
Where what's coming out is not going to be a butterfly.
Big sticky chrysalis.
Yeah, and
obviously those Dalek casings are quite spacious if you can fit a full-grown human being underneath it or at the bottom of it.
Well, I'm guessing it wasn't very comfortable in there, but
we've seen people get inside Dalek casings before. After all, the operators playing the Daleks have to.
Well, that's true.
Yes. So when the evolution of the hybrid eventually ends, out walks the new Dalek hybrid.
In a snappy 1930s zoot suit and a really ridiculous looking squid head.
Oh, it was terrible. I have to say that squid head looked really bad. It was just the one-eyed head with the sort of blobby stubs of tentacles, and it's got Daggeris' New York accent, which is even worse because it's apparently a different actor.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked it up, and the Dalek hybrid was played by a different actor than Daggeris, who probably didn't want to put the mask on or something. So that's where it ends is with his emergence.
And the visual design, this is one of the things that is most criticized about this story, as well as the general incoherence, because this is where it really starts to go off the rails.
Yeah.
Is the introduction of Dalek Sec in his new humanized form. But the visual design of this with the human body and the zoot suit and the squid head is just thought by many to be one of the worst things about this.
Yeah. Yes. There are things that are okay with this episode, but in general, we can get into our assessment at the as we get to the end, I guess. But so then that brings us to the next episode, Evolution of the Daleks, where we start
very classic Who Dalek title.
Yes.
Something of the Daleks.
Yes,
right.
And this is the first time they've used that convention in New Who.
Right. And then we get this discussion here with the Doctor and Martha are present at this point in the Dalek laboratory, and the Doctor tries to engage him, this new hybrid, in conversation, and they get into a somewhat philosophical discussion of what is humanity about? Is it about aggression, hatred, and war, or is it about love and and friendship,
music, and all that. Yeah,
Yep.
and
Right.
this is really where, just from a writing perspective, this is where they're really starting to have problems. I mean, the cliffhanger gave us the visually ridiculous humanized Dalek form, and now at the top of the second episode, the Doctor asks Dalek Sec what he feels, and his answer is, "I feel humanity." And it's like, okay, you've just told us the plot for the rest of the episode.
Right.
It is totally clear that from this moment forward, Dalek Sec is going to be progressively more humanized, and that will lead to a civil war with the other Daleks, and it is going to end badly for Dalek Sec, and the Doctor will in some way end up allying with Dalek Sec and be crushed at the defeat in the whole thing. It's like you've just given away the whole plot.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I mean, from this point on, there isn't a whole lot to talk about in the sense of the plot. It's just a lot of action back and forth.
And that doesn't make sense. We then go back to Hooverville,
right,
where the Daleks have gotten all shooty on people. And Solomon intervenes with another of his speeches, this one spectacularly ill-advised "can't we be friends" speech to the Daleks. We as viewers know, and the Daleks back in the Empire State Building are watching this over their, remote surveillance. And again, exactly what's going to happen. Solomon makes his speech. The Dalek who is there will shoot him and kill him. But Dalek Sec, watching over the monitor, will be moved by what Solomon did, and that's exactly what happens.
Right. It's given what we saw of what the Daleks are doing, just that he would Solomon goes into this whole thing like, I'm terrified, but it's got to give me hope, knowing that the universe is bigger, and then they get shot down. Like, if you have any compassion in your hearts. It's a very cynical moment, isn't it? Like, it's very cynical. Like, nope, no hope for you. Zap, exterminated. But also obvious. So anyway, the Doctor.
And then, for the first time this episode, the Doctor becomes suicidal, and demands that the Daleks kill him. But then wants to tack on conditions. Oh, and you've got to leave these humans here alone. And for what reason the Doctor would expect to trust the Daleks to honor that agreement after all his dealings with them is anybody's guess.
Well, he says it's because the Daleks changed their minds, and Daleks never change their minds.
Yeah. I think that I have altered the deal. Pray that we don't alter it further. I think he's had some experience with Daleks changing their minds.
Yes.
But in any event, he suddenly becomes suicidal, and then Dalek Sec intervenes to save him and bring him back to the Empire State Building because he's a genius and he can use him to further their plans.
Right. Oh, by the way, does nobody in New York City notice the giant laser battle going on in Central Park?
Hey, it's New York. No one wants to get involved.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
It's New York City. Of course, everything's happening over there. So Dalek Sec thinks that Daleks should have emotions again, and they should not reign supreme. And then they want to use the bodies of the people they killed to make new hybrids. And the Doctor's going to help with this because he hopes that'll make the Daleks into moral Daleks. But is this moral? Is this right?
No. Oh, so what you have here are people who have been mentally damaged by Daleks. They're still alive, but they're mentally damaged, and you want to brainwash them. And the Doctor is okay with that?
Well, not just brainwash them, but completely change their genetic code to splice in Dalek DNA as well.
Right.
You're gonna physically manipulate them in addition to the Dalek brainwashing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, he's thinking this is not going to be a full Dalek brainwash, that they're going to be humanized still. But it just, the morality of this, the Doctor just is in Dr. Frankenstein mode here. He's not thinking through the moral implications of this.
By the way, this part of the episode did have some nice homages to the classic Frankenstein movie.
Yeah,
but
Yes. Yeah, where they lower the bodies down from the ceiling on the platforms, and that was classic. And of course, the lightning thing is
and they're all wrapped up and stuff.
Yeah,
I do want to mention real quick one annoyance I have with this part, though. It's, you watch them when they lower the gurney, they turn off the switch. Those nice switches, you have to close the contact for it to work, not pull it apart.
These must be dead men switches.
And they did that 3 times. 3 times during this episode, they did that. It's like, are you kidding me? Apparently, you've never actually used these.
True. By the way, get it? Dead men switches?
Yes, they were. Yeah. So Tallulah, looking out upon New York City from the top of the Empire State Building, says, New York City. I'm going to try to do her accent. If aliens had to come to Earth, no wonder they came here. Except all the times they went to London.
Yeah.
In the past, by the way, not just in the present day. Yeah. But, of course.
I think you did a better accent trying to impersonate her than she did trying to impersonate a New Yorker.
I want the friends one. Hey, how you doing? All right.
By the way, at this point in the story, so Tallulah, speaking of Tallulah, she's up on the top of the Empire State Building now with Martha and Frank, and they're looking at blueprints, trying to figure out what the Daleks' plan is based on the blueprints. And so we get not comic relief, but romantic subplot now. We get more Martha soap opera.
Yep.
Where and the first time I saw this season, the Martha thing and her relationship with the Doctor really didn't leap out at me, but watching it now, even with long gaps between individual episodes, they're really dragging out the Martha thing.
Oh yeah.
This was ultimately the problem with Martha Jones as a companion, I think.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind that they did it. The way they did it. Yeah. After having an intense relationship with Rose that brought the Doctor for the first time to really have love on screen for a companion in that way, and then lose her, it is natural to then say, okay, let's explore the flip side of that. Let's have the Doctor, be grieving for Rose, and what form does that take? It's either going to take rebound or isolation. Yep. And bringing in a character who's then interested in him that he doesn't reciprocate and doesn't handle in the best way. That's an interesting dramatic choice. I don't mind that they made that dramatic choice. I think it's logical to explore that, but they're really dragging it out.
Yeah.
The whole line of, he's looking at me, but it's obvious he's thinking of someone else, thinking of Rose while he's looking at her. And it's just like, that's kind of sappy.
Well, it reaches its poignancy in a couple of episodes. What is the title of it? The one where the Doctor has lost his memory around the time of World War One. Yeah, Human
Nature, Family of Blood.
Yes, and it reaches now there. It's got a sort of poignancy to it, which works better than it does now. Where it's just the pining. I mean, in the Shakespeare Code, it was at its lowest point, where she was just kind of being obvious, and he was just being a jerk. And here, he's not really reacting to her at all. It's just her pining from afar. But you're right; they are just dragging it out, and I think it harms Martha's time as a companion. I mean, I wish they'd got over it and moved on. Like you say. So we have so at one point Martha reflects on the killing of the pig slaves, which is good that comes up, because these were people that have been mutilated and mentally and physically.
And now conveniently they have a lifespan of only a few weeks, so we don't have to worry about them.
Right. We don't have to try to fix them or deal with them living a full human life otherwise. The new Dalek human hybrids are activated. They're more robotic than they are independent in some sense. They don't seem to have at first any independent thought. They're armed and given
with laser Tommy guns.
Yes,
I love it.
I was going to mention that. I just thought that was like, oh, come on. Like,
I thought they were cool. I mean, they're kind of dorky in a way, but I mean, the laser guns that you have to actually activate the
Yeah, it's just,
still,
it's a little on the nose for me because it's 1930s New York. You got to have Tommy guns.
Yeah, it's a Tommy gun with a Dalek blaster stuck on the front of it.
Right. And then we have the Dalek humans. They're ordered to kill the Doctor and refuse to obey. But I love how they do it. They're like, but why? But why? But why?
Yeah,
and I'm
so
like, they're toddlers.
They became 2-year-olds.
I think, I can understand why the other Daleks killed them. They get annoyed with them too.
Yeah. So we need to back up to explain why this happens for a second, because the Daleks were waiting for the gamma strike, which is going to be gamma rays emitted by our sun. And our sun does emit some gamma rays in powerful solar flares, so that's okay. But then they're going to strike the front half of the planet and wrap themselves around the atmosphere and
to the night side
and take the form of lightning for some reason, and then which is a different kind of energy, a different frequency of energy, and lightning's also a plasma, but then that they're going to be attracted by the Dalekanium casing that has been attached to the antenna on the top of the Empire State, or the spire on the top of the Empire State Building, and be funneled down to power the conversion of the humans into Dalek humans. And the Doctor has gone up there to strip off, in the lightning storm, to strip off the Dalekanium casing. And he is able to sonic one of the pieces off, but then he drops the sonic screwdriver. So there's still 2 pieces of Dalekanium on there. It's still going to attract a bunch of the gamma strike. And so all he can think to do is get suicidal again and grab the antenna and let the gamma strike go through his body, so that somehow his DNA will get mixed into the power supply for the medical procedure.
Yeah.
And that will go up his DNA will go up the electrical cords that are powering this and get infused into the patients.
None of this makes any sense.
But
None of this makes any sense.
You're missing the most important question. Does it produce 1.21 gigawatts?
It powers the TARDIS, makes it go through time.
Yeah. So in any event, he somehow got his DNA into these human Dalek things, and thus upset the Daleks' calculations of how this is supposed to work. And he's just happened to hit the jackpot of all the things that could happen. He's given them a conscience. Okay.
Yeah. Now I remember
that. Yeah, let's go with that. You can just imagine it in the writer's room.
That's the thing. It's like, I mean, it's kind of why I kind of skimmed over that, just because as I'm watching it, it didn't make any sense. It still doesn't make any sense. Like, all of this is sort of, I like, how does this? It's just sort of a whole bunch of stuff that they strung together because we needed to get all the pieces together at this final moment where Dalek Sec sacrifices himself, and then the human Daleks rebel against the rest of the cult of Skaro because because the Doctor tells them to, because we have Time Lord victorious once again, by the way.
And by the way, the sonic screwdriver failed as a screwdriver, or almost failed as a screwdriver.
Right.
To unscrew the Dalekanium, it almost didn't do it.
It's a fundamental thing that it does, is unscrew things. I mean, that is basic.
And it didn't do it well.
They couldn't do the unscrewing.
Yeah. So the human Daleks, on the orders of 2 of the members of the cult of Skaro, kill Dalek Sec. So we're now down to 3 members of the cult of Skaro. Then when the human Daleks rebel, they kill 2 more.
Yep.
So now we're down to only Dalek Khan, who's not in the room at the moment. He's back at the control center. And so when Dalek Khan realizes the humans have rebelled, he flips a switch in their head, killing all of them that remain. So now we don't have to worry about them anymore. Right. And that leaves us with the only person we have to worry about is Laszlo. that the Daleks had messed with.
Right. Well, by the way, he flips the switch to self-destruct the human Daleks. Well, why did he do that first? Why go through this extended battle where you end up losing 2/3 of the rest of your race?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's
little slow.
Yeah, Daleks are not the smartest creatures, I guess.
But they are the supreme master race or something.
Right. And so as the
by the way, I like how the Doctor has this line about telling the Daleks, if you choose death and destruction, then death and destruction will choose you. And I think I've heard that before, only something about those who live by the sword will die by the sword.
Yeah, you could keep that one, he said to Jesus at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a future episode. Where he
I
goes,
hope not.
Boy, I hope they don't ever do that. So, the Doctor confronts Dalek Khan, and Dalek Khan time shifts again.
Oh yeah. Also, this was another time in this episode the Doctor became suicidal because he didn't know what the human Daleks were going to do, and he's standing up on top of those chairs in the theater, which was actually cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you can do, but it's dangerous, so don't.
Yes.
But he again seems to have no plan and is inviting them to kill him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's with the Doctor's death wish in this story, but it happens 3 times.
Yeah. Just you watch me, says the Time Lord triumphant.
Yeah.
So and then so as the episode comes to an end, we're like you said, we just have Laszlo left, and the Doctor grabs a bunch of junk in the laboratory and plays with it in order to try to save Laszlo, which apparently he does.
See.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
he saves him, extends his lifespan, but forgets to give him plastic surgery.
Yeah, just why not give him the little bit of reconstruction? Anyway, the Laszlo is the as we said at the beginning. I'm not sure Laszlo is going to be going home to meet Tallulah's family at this point, but because that little picking it up from the beginning. So
I love it. I love it. By the way, during the extended sequences where we're getting these obvious hints that Laszlo is going to die soon. Yes. At one point, he completely collapses, and Martha diagnoses him and says, his heart is beating like mad. I've never seen anything like it before. It's like, really, Martha? You're a doctor and you've never seen tachycardia before? I hope most doctors in your hospital have, because it's very common.
Yeah, exactly. She needs some more training, I think. So that brings us to the end. The Martha says, do you think we'll ever see the Daleks again? And the Doctor says, oh yes, one day. Foreshadowing, not a stretch, I guess. So final thoughts on these 2 episodes. I'm gathering that none of us were all that high on these 2 episodes. We wouldn't rank them very highly.
No, I thought the last scene with the Doctor and Dalek Khan was particularly unfortunate, because Dalek Khan is preparing to emergency temporal shift away. And so he's going to escape. And the Doctor's trying to talk him out of it. And the Doctor shows up after the massacre in the theater. The Doctor gets to where Dalek Khan is in the control center and says, I'm the only man in the universe that might show you some compassion. Which is a line that makes no sense, because there are lots of people stupid enough to show Daleks compassion. Right. That's, in fact, they regularly rely on that. So, so that line makes no sense. But it's just meant for grandstanding purposes about, I'm the last of my kind. You just committed a genocide, and I'm not going to do what you just did to show how good I am. So it's virtue signaling by the Doctor.
Right.
That really doesn't make any sense. And then he offers to help Dalek Khan, but doesn't explain what he plans to help him with. So
yes,
the dialogue in that scene seems to make no sense. Also, we have I began to be distracted by the fact that his name is Dalek Khan. And I thought that's an interesting designation. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, human Dom and human Father Corey.
Yeah. You mean like Dalek Sec and Dalek Khan? And yes.
Dalek Jast and everything. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's I had to look it up because I thought it was Khan as in,
Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, exactly. But it's CONN, like what a naval ship has, the Khan.
Yeah.
Oh, on my subtitles, and I think on TARDIS Wiki, it was CAAN.
Oh, no, you're right. It's CAAN. I misread it. Yeah.
Like the actor. Maybe it's James Caan in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it's an interesting. I didn't understand, like, the naming, that whole bit. It was, I mean, it's fine to leave it unexplained, I guess. I mean, you don't have to explain everything, but it was
different.
Incidentally, this is also not the first time we've seen a Dalek civil war involving genetic purity in their species. They've also done that in remembrance of the Daleks in the Seventh Doctor's time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Father Corey, any last thoughts on these two episodes? Okay, so yep, that's our take on the Daleks Take Manhattan, the Muppet movie, and maybe that's what was on the top of the Dalek hybrid's head was a Muppet. Kind of looked like one. So we'd love to hear what you have to think, but first, we want to take a moment, as we do in each of our episodes, to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to make the Secrets of Doctor Who. We are very grateful for your support. And today we want to thank Dennis S. Fonseca, Mary C., Jeffrey M., and Richard H. Through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give. They make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at sqpn.com. And you can join them in that support by visiting sqpn.com/give. So, what do you think of this 10th Doctor 2-part story, Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks, or what we had to say about it? Let us know by visiting sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page and leave some feedback there, or send us an email to drwho@sqpn.com. You can find links to all of our social media and our websites on our show notes at sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the 3rd Doctor story, Ambassadors of Death. Until then, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
I'm glad to be here, and thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thank you, Human Dom.
And once again, I'm Human Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, I am a human Dalek. I am your future.
Right. This is going to be fun.